Welcome to the presentation tonight. I'm Jeff Demansky. I'm going to be your host for this presentation to talk about the exploration of the community power program that the Village of Highland Falls is exploring. And the town of Highlands is also concurrently in an exploration for the same type of program. They'll be in partnership together with my organization and the administrator of the program. The hints for using Zoom are on the screen. I'm sure everyone's pretty adept these days at using Zoom. So please, just keep yourselves muted and screens off during the presentation. And if you have a question, there'll definitely be time for questions at the end, but please feel free to use the chat feature as well. So let's move on to talk about what the topic is tonight. So we're here to talk about this clean energy program that the Village of Highland Falls is exploring. And as part of the process, this is a partnership program. This was enabled by a local law in the Village of Highland Falls to enter into a program that is a partnership with other communities, guided by the organization shown in the lower right of the slide, Jewel Community Power. And they have chosen Jewel to have a local nonprofit be the program organizer to support and coordinate the program for the exploration phase, and if it launches, to be there throughout the life of the program to answer questions and support the community members with exiting or entering the program or answering questions and clarifying other energy related challenges that are out there. And that's my organization, shown as Hudson Valley Energy. And together, we're helping the village explore this program that's would be called, if it launches, Highland Falls Community Power, and it is a CCA program. That last acronym on this slide is CCA, and that stands for Community Choice Aggregation, which is a policy that the state enabled in 2016. And I'll talk about that in detail on an upcoming slide. Including, beginning with, as shown on my overview slide here, what is community choice aggregation, this acronym that I'll use of CCA. So what are the benefits of CCA? We'll go over, will the CCA affect me? And if the program launches, will it affect me? And if the program launches, or what does it look like? I think it's useful to look at the perspective of how it looks on an Orange and Rockland bill. Then we'll talk about next steps for the program launch, if the program does move to launch, and the timeline associated with that. And then I'll finish off with some FAQs. And there'll definitely be time for questions afterwards. So this is the most wordy slide in the presentation, but this is to explain what community choice aggregation, or CCA, is in detail. And in brief, it's to look at the bullets starting at the top. It's an energy purchase program authorized by the New York State's Public Service Commission in 2016. In essence, what they did in 2016 was give cities and towns and villages the ability to act on behalf of their community members, residents, small businesses, other institutions like churches and schools and the like, around electricity supply choice, which is our focus for tonight. This is something that every individual utility customer has had the ability to make a choice about since the 1990s in New York State. Since the electricity markets were deregulated, the energy markets were deregulated in New York State. What that means, and I'll explain this in detail when we look at the utility bill, an Orange and Rockland bill, but emphasize it here, is that deregulation made the utility companies into delivery companies only, like UPS or FedEx or the Postal Service. They just deliver a product that they don't make. So deregulation prevented utility companies like Con Ed or Central Hudson or Orange and Rockland from making the power. So they don't own the power production sources. Other companies do. And there are companies that act as the middlemen between the generators, the power producers, and the delivery company, your local utility. And those producers, and typically the middlemen companies, the energy service companies, often called ESCOs, are out there and available to be engaged by individual utility customers to designate a supply choice. And I'll talk about what I'm talking about supply in more detail in the upcoming slides. But in essence, again, it's an individual choice that, for a number of reasons that I'll explain, the state said it would be a wise idea to allow cities and towns and villages through this community choice aggregation program to act on behalf of their citizens, to give them a new choice. Doesn't take away any choices, but to give them a new choice for electricity. So in essence, the reason it has power is because of the aggregation, or to look at the second bullet, this bulk purchasing effort. When you represent a number of community members and you aggregate a number of communities together, you have a significant demand. And from basic economics, you might know that when you have a lot of leverage through demand, you have the ability to have power in the marketplace. And so that's what this does. It allows municipalities to aggregate the energy demand, to negotiate a bulk purchase for electricity supply, to get a very good rate for electricity. And for us, there's the additional benefit of the local decision-making. Not only can they negotiate a fixed rate, but it puts the power of decision-making in the community's hands for local selection of the supply source. When it launches, every community member in a participating community is eligible to participate. And a significant number, the majority of community members, will automatically be included. Those customers, as I'll explain in an upcoming slide, who are in an existing default situation established by deregulation, wherein they have the utility company, Orange and Rockland, not only doing delivery, but as a state determined default, also making the supply decision as a pass-through cost. No revenues generated for Orange and Rockland through this, but they do it as a default setting. So those customers would automatically be included in the towns and the villages program if it launches, and have the ability to opt out if they don't want to be part of it, to go back to the original default, the original opt-out situation, or to go into the private marketplace. So it does just present an additional new opportunity. So let's look at what this actually means logistically from a day-to-day perspective. From a utility bill perspective, I think it's really helpful to understand exactly what changes and what doesn't change. And this is an Orange and Rockland bill, just a generic bill. And you can see what I've emphasized here with this small box, but then with the large box surrounding it is the delivery charges section. This is a section of the bill that Orange and Rockland can only make money on. They're only a delivery company. So those line items in the delivery section are the sections, is the section where they can make money for, again, delivering a product, electricity in this case, to their customers. What does change if the program launches is what our focus is the supply section. And that's shown in the green box here. And there are line items in this section that allow people to pay for how the power is made, how electricity is made. So if you look, it's a little broken up, a little separated, but there are 3 line items in this section. And that is the clue, the indication that Orange and Rockland is making the supply decision for the customer. There's a market charge, an adjustment, and there's something called a merchant function charge that a customer pays. And these 3 line items, the rates shown in the middle column, added together, if you add up those 3 middle numbers, you see that number towards the bottom to the left of the words electricity supply in the green box. That is the total supply rate. So 5.906 in this hypothetical example bill. So that is electricity supply. For clarification, I think it's useful to clarify that what is not represented by supply is a solar benefit that somebody might derive. And so if somebody has solar on their home or business, and many people are hearing about this ability to reap the benefit of solar by being a virtual owner of a portion of a field of solar, not on their home or business, those benefits show up in this adjustments and payments section. It is a different section than the supply section. So what I'm showing here is how the program changes. So this is kind of like a before and an after. Going back, there's your delivery charges section, there's your supply charges section with the 3 line items. And if a program launches, the 3 line items in the supply charges section are replaced by 1 single line item on the Orange and Rockland bill, surrounded by the green box. So all of the detail in there is replaced by 1 single line item. which doesn't even show the rate on this page. But those of you in Orange and Rockland who have perhaps engaged a third-party supplier for your supply know that you've seen this single line item in this page. And then there's a second page that has the details. Still one line item, but it shows your usage, the 1,261 kilowatt hours at, in this case, 5.7 cents per kilowatt hour. You multiply that together, you get $71.88 for your supply charges, which is reflected on both pages in this case. This is how it works if the village launches a program. If the village moves forward, they'll be part of a competitive bid process to pick a supplier, and they'll determine if that rate looks good. And if it does, they'll move forward. And people who stay in the program will have the one single selected rate on their bill. So very importantly, again, what we see through this bill example is, one, it does not change the relationship with Orange and Rockland at all. This does not displace Orange and Rockland. They are still a delivery company. Those delivery charges, that's storm damage repair, that is billing service, that's customer service to answer questions, that is everything they do for delivery services. What changes is the section where they are not allowed to make money. So they are not bothered by this program if it launches. That's the supply charges section. So very simply put, this is what changes when a program moves forward. So to revisit what are the supply options, if you look at this table, this is my menu slide, there are three choices. There's the first choice that a customer has is the state determined default. That is the utility company making that choice for them as a pass-through cost. That's the original opt-out established in the 1990s. That deregulation created the market that is a second choice, always available to customers. And that's choice number two. If a CCA program launches, it becomes a third choice and it becomes the new default choice, but it is a locally determined choice versus the first choice where the utility company is making a decision. No customer, no town official has any say in the supply decision. That's a wonderful thing about this program, is that it makes it a local determined decision. So the benefits is that local decision making is one of the first things we highlight on this slide, and the ability to leverage a bulk buying strategy through aggregation. The fixed rate, what I show in the simplified graph on the left, is the program rate represented by the flat green line, because that's the way it works. Every single month for the duration of the contract that's determined to be the appropriate length of time, typically 2 or 3 years, that rate would be the exact same rate every single month. So in this rate diagram, the green line is the flat program rate, which customers can compare for apples to oranges comparison, if you will, to the red dotted line that goes up and down, which is the utility rate, which does fluctuate every month and is predominantly a non-renewable rate. So there's a beauty of eliminating price volatility, as shown in the third bullet. For us, there's an additional win. We've been talking about this rate and the ability for a bulk leverage buying opportunity to get a very good and competitive rate. But in addition, one of the very important aspects of this program for us and for the communities that are considering this, and for New York State in allowing this, is that you can have a win-win scenario where you could have a very competitive rate that can be very competitive with the utility rate, which is predominantly non-renewable, while the program rate is for 100% renewable sourced electricity from New York State sources. So this is a very significant mechanism that the state and municipalities within it, as decision makers, have to accelerate the transition to renewable energy. And additionally, this program is done in a way where there is no contract for municipal customers. So there's no restrictions in this program. There's no fine print. It is a public benefit offered to community members that they can opt in or opt out at any time. So this is one of the significant consumer protection elements built into the program. The program is performing very well, as I show on this chart, in another community series of communities that we're working with in Rockland County. The red line represents the private market rate. The yellow line represents the utility rate that fluctuates every month. This is the actual Orange and Rockland utility rate for this program, which started in November 2020. The blue line is the running average of the utility rate, starting with the beginning of the program in November 2020. And you can see that it shows that there's been an average increase in the utility rates since the program started all the way through June of 2022, where the current average is about 8.36 cents per kilowatt hour over the life of the program so far. The blue line is higher than the green line and the purple line. Those are the program rates for the Rockland Community Power Program, which consists of the 6 communities shown on the left. Those are the fixed rates for our program, including the green rate, which is the default renewable choice for those communities at about 7.2 cents per kilowatt hour. So this proves that a win-win scenario is possible. But I want to note that there are times that the yellow line, the utility rate, does go below our program rate, especially in the beginning, as shown here. Have to fix that. So it is not a guaranteed savings to the program. So if the program moves forward, this shows who the affected customers are. Everyone would be included, except for some customers who have a third-party arrangement in place, or customers that are larger customers that are billed on a demand electricity rate basis. Customers that have a freeze or a block on their account are also excluded from the program, as are customers who are in the home energy assistance program. So those are folks who are having a subsidized payment program because of there's not a guaranteed savings, that the program rates will always be, or on average, better than the utility rate. They're not automatically included, but all others are automatically included in the program. So if the program moves forward, everyone will receive letters describing the program, including the program rates and the details of how to get in or out of the program, should somebody want, in late summer of 2022. So that is after the competitive bid process is carried out and the community leaders decide if they want to proceed with the program. And this assumes that they do. That's when the letters will be sent describing the program, welcoming people, describing the opt-out process. So those are the welcome opt-out letters. There is a 30-day period that starts with the sending of those letters. That is an opt-out period for anyone who just wants to stay with the original default, or to make their own decision in the private marketplace, choice number 2 in my menu slide. The community will have decided, and as will be described in the letter, what the default choice is. And we anticipate it'll be a 100% renewable option. And then the program rate will be on everyone's Orange and Rockland bill beginning in fall of 2022, with the new supplier identified on the bill. And these are the frequently asked questions. So does this program replace my utility company? No, there's no displacement of the utility company. You still just pay your utility bill to Orange and Rockland, and everything's included. There's not a separate bill. Does this impact the reliability of my electricity? No, your utility continues to deliver your electricity and provides the same service whether you are participating in the program or not. Will the program save me money? It is not guaranteed. We just like to make sure that that's clear, but it is a fixed and competitive rate. What if I decide to change my supply choice? Once the program launches, you can opt in or opt out at any time. And if there's 2 choices of supply options, you can choose one and switch to the other one at any time. Do I have to stay in the program the entire time? No, no one has to stay in the program for any duration. There's no restrictions, no requirements, so anybody could opt out at any time. Can I participate if I have my own solar panels or if I participate in community solar? Yes. As I showed with those 2 different sections on the bill, that was to emphasize that the supply program under the CCA is different than having solar on your home or a community solar subscription. They are 2 separate transactions on your utility bill, meaning you can do neither, both, or mix and match. So what happens after the program ends? And this is a question inspired by people who have done third-party programs before, where it's been a fixed rate, but then they found that the price fluctuates afterwards. The municipalities, as the other municipalities we're working with in the Hudson Valley, can renew the program for a new fixed rate contract. But if they don't, everyone automatically reverts to the original opt-out option. So it's very simple, and that's part of the consumer protection element to make sure it's easy and simple for participants. So those are my frequently asked questions. I'll stop for a moment to see if there's any questions that anyone has. I don't see anything in the chat window, but let me just give it a moment to see if there's any questions. Okay, I guess not. Well, thank you so much. And I wish you all a good night. Thank you.